final score, Wrexham 2, Dagenham and Redbridge 2. I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team, and I apologise for this going out later than usual, but I'll be perfectly frank with you. I needed a bit of time to work all that out. I've had a look through the game again, looking for punishment, because there was so much to get your teeth into in that game. And lots of positive things and negatives. So, let's begin at the beginning. Wrexham made a couple of enforced changes. Tyler French, of course, was suspended. So too was James Horsfield after picking up a yellow card at Eastleigh. And so, interestingly, we brought Jordan Davis inside to play as a left-sided centre-back. Dan Jarvis was back playing behind the strikers, and Hall Johnson came back on the right-hand side. So Davis playing as the left-sided centre-back was a big call. Before we talk about this game anymore, let's just remember the context of it is that we have one fit centre-back in the entire squad. Terrific injury issues. So we had to play a back three of Kelleher, the one centre-back, Carrington, who, as we know, is not a centre-back, although admirably he can fill in all sorts of good positions and do a good job. And centre-back is one of them. And now, with Horsfield, who's been slotting in well in that role, missing, we had to switch Carrington to the other side. Could have brought in Record as the left-sided centre-back, and that's an interesting point I'll touch upon a bit later on. Played Jordan Davis there instead. It was a big call, a massive, massive call. Davis is obviously extremely talented and is obviously able to play in a range of positions. When he's been in deep midfield positions, he occasionally, most obviously against Maidenhead, when he was knocked off the ball for the only goal of the game, he can sometimes get muscled off it, which makes you think, should he play centre-back? Record, of course, is a bit more physical and experienced. Having said that, we'll go through the performances and the whys and wherefores, but basically, all that didn't seem to look like it was going to matter in the opening 6 minutes. How Wrexham didn't have a lead after 6 minutes is beyond me. Well, I say beyond me. Elliot Justin is the reason. Dagenham's goalkeeper, utterly outstanding. Dagenham, who've had a poor run of form lately, reacted by making 5 changes and leaving a lot of experience out of their team. And, the game in the first half was just so ludicrously open. Both sides had fabulous chances, and that's why, really, by the end of the match, Wrexham could have won it 4-0. Dagenham could have won it 4-2. Could have been 6-all. It really was one of those matches. Wrexham's opportunities, straight from the kickoff, Wrexham were at Dagenham's throat. Within the first minute, Jarvis had got round the back of the defence and ran down the goal line on the right-hand side, got into the 6-yard box, a crowded 6-yard box. I can't remember the last time I've seen us have the ball in the opposition 6-yard box as often as yesterday, which again is frustrating because we didn't turn those into goals very often. He was denied by a tremendous recovering tackle by Kenny Clark, lunging in from behind and putting it out for a corner. I would argue possibly that's one of the reasons why we didn't capitalise. Although Dagenham defensively were wide open, the 2 centre-backs, Luke Kroll and Clark, I thought as individuals did really well, made a lot of crucial headers and tackles. Those 2 and Justin, their last-ditch defending, kept the score down unquestionably. So from that corner, it was played short by Record. Jarvis popped it back. Record swung it in. It was scrambled clear. And Harris was able to drill in a shot which Justin tipped over the bar. Not the most difficult save, this. It came after that short corner, saw Record getting around the back and feeding in, not quite finding Kwame Thomas. The pressure was incessant. A minute later, another Record corner, swung into the near post. This was the closest Wrexham came to a goal in the opening stages. Jay Harris, in his position at the near post. Jay Harris wins a hell of a lot of headers for a little fella. Got up, perfect flick on, a cross goal into the bottom corner, or so it seemed. Justin with the save of the match, one of the saves of the season as far as I'm concerned in a Wrexham game. Brilliant work. He's the near post is to his left. He's focused upon that. It's then gone flashing in the other direction. Utterly outstanding save to lunge and palm it away when it looked destined to go in the bottom corner. A real A real let-off, unbelievable save. And Wrexham continued to push on. Record, pushing the ball over the top. Angus did brilliantly down the left-hand side to take on the defenders, hit the goal line in again inside the penalty area, pull the ball back in. Kwame Thomas was attacking the 6-yard box. The pullback was just behind him, but Hall Johnson attacked it and got there in acres of space on the edge of the area, took a touch and did the right thing, drove the ball across Justin again, and Justin, who was committing to his left, again did brilliantly to stick out his right foot and make the save. This is after 6 minutes. It's all Wrexham battering a Dagenham defence that looked incredibly porous. But then we got a taste of what Dagenham could do, because although, right, okay, clearly Wrexham should have won this match, the number of clear-cut chances and near misses we had, the number of saves Justin made, and the fact we were leading 2-0 with, 12 minutes of the game left. But do not assume that Dagenham were passive. Dagenham were massively threatening, and as I said earlier, they could have won it with the amount of chances they made, and they started giving us good warning in the 8th minute in this absolutely crazy harem-scarum first half. It was a good piece of work by Scott Wilson, breaking down the right-hand side and pulling in across. It was blocked well by Kelleher, but came out to the edge of the box to Deering, who in the first half, given a sort of free roll in midfield, they played a 4-1-4-1, and he was on centre mid, but with the cover of Dean Rance, the holding midfielder, able to wander. He came up on the edge of the area, drilled in a vicious shot. Kelleher again hurled himself at it and blocked it with combination of chest and upper arm. It hit him around the sleeve area. I think the ref was right to not give the penalty, but it was a tight call. His arm was pretty close into his body, so I think all those things go in Kelleher's favour. The ball ricocheted to the edge of the area where Robinson picked it up and drilled an excellent shot, which just hit the side netting, just wide of the left post. He was going for the top left corner. He was about 6 inches off to the left. Great effort. So Dagenham sent us a warning, but of course, in this sort of match, it wasn't long before Wrexham were back at them again. Again, Record with another sumptuous delivery from a corner, flashing across the 6-yard box at headable height, but nobody attacked it. It went across the face of goal. Kelleher, lurking beyond the far post, came in, managed to lunge and make contact as the ball was about to cross the line for a goal kick, and floated it up. It just went over the bar. It was a well-nigh impossible angle. Kelleher did well to squeeze it towards goal, in all honesty. And then the action continues at the other end. Johnson, a very progressive left-back, getting himself forwards, and from 25 yards, drilling a powerful shot. Dibble saw it late and did really well to get down low to his left to push it away. 4 minutes later, a mad scramble in the Wrexham goalmouth. The ball initially played in by McQueen. Deering was on the edge of the box and got in the way of Wilson as he was about to hit it. It was poked into the goalmouth. A crazy scramble where Jay Harris made an air shot and then Hall Johnson hit the ball against a Wrexham player. The ball just wouldn't leave the 6-yard box. And then, well, I got to be honest and say that personally, and anyone listening to our commentary, sorry, heart in the mouth moments, because Deering latched onto it in the 6-yard box, went down, and the whistle went. I saw the flag going up at the same time, and I thought it was a penalty. But the linesman is actually flagging for offside, so Wrexham managed to survive it. All that was within the first 20 minutes. How on earth it was goalless is beyond me. And although then there was surprisingly a little spell with no goalmouth activity. Oh, beg your pardon. Another thing happened in the first 20 minutes as well, which was a corner cleared out, and Luke Young met it with, the most glorious volley. It's about a full 30 yards out. It was a heck of a long way out. The ball was coming back at him, and he just smashed it. Amazing technique and contact. Unluckily for him, straight down the middle. And Justin therefore had a pretty easy save. Justin, the keeper, who 3 seasons ago conceded that goal by Luke Young, the one that won in the Goal of the Season award, that was at Dagenham. I've got to say, if he'd managed to nail that a bit wider of Justin, because of my word, as you can imagine with a 30-yard volley, it was travelling. I think he would have scored a better goal, to be frank, than the amazing goal he scored at Dagenham I just mentioned. But then after that spell of quiet, there was then a crazy passage of play, which ought to have ended 1-0 to one side or other. It started off with, again, Record sweeping in a corner. This was a remarkable near miss. Jordan Davis getting up beyond the far post, headed the ball back in, beat the keeper, and Wrexham argued it went over the line. I don't think it did. It looked like it should have gone over the line anyway, because Angus and Thomas, both unmarked in the 6-yard box, both attacked the same ball. And as it was on the line, Clark, from nowhere, somehow managed to lunge across them both and make a heroically brave header and head it clear. I mean, it was as close as you get to scoring a goal without scoring a goal. It was remarkable. The ball's in the act of crossing the line. Two huge centre forwards are lunging at it, and Clark, by a matter of what must have been centimetres, manages to dive in and head it away. Astonishing piece of work, throwing his body on the line in service of his team. And like I said, it should have been 1-0 either way, because immediately there was a breakaway. Deering again, bursting forwards. He fed Wilson on the right side of the box, who cut inside and, with the goal in his sights, slotted it nicely into the bottom left corner. But for some bizarre reason, McQueen, running in at the far post, decided to steal the goal and tapped it in, and he was offside. The shot was going in, I'm certain. So it was 1-0 until McQueen decided, I'll have a cheap goal here, and he was well off. So an incredible let-off for Wrexham, moments after an incredible let-off for Dagenham. Summed the game up in many ways. That mistake became even more serious 3 minutes later, because Wrexham finally took the lead. And I've got to say, it was a beautiful piece of approach play. Hall Johnson with the throw-in. Thomas and Jarvis combining beautifully with little triangles round the corner to take people out of play, and tee up Hall Johnson again. He swung a lovely cross into the far post. Jamie Record was there on the edge of the 6-yard box. The benefit of playing three at the back, we've got one right wing back by the corner flag crossing and the left wing back in the 6-yard box. But it was not an easy task. It was coming at an awkward Hout for Record, who did ever so well to bring it down, and then as it bounced back up, control his hooked volley into the top right corner. A brilliant goal by Jamie Record. He deserves every ounce of credit for that finish. His second goal in consecutive Saturdays. And Wrexham at last had the lead that we deserved, though Dagenham typically came back. Wilson doing really well to keep the ball in and feeding the ball to Saunders. 10 yards out, he drove it in. Kelleher with a good block standing in front of Dibble. And then, as the class was coming to a close, Wrexham having a glorious chance to go in 2-up. Hall Johnson hitting a really well-judged ball over the top. And Angus was one-on-one with the keeper, driving in down the right channel. But again, Justin did well to stand up and ultimately save with his feet. So Wrexham went in at half-time, 1 goal to the good. How we only scored 1, I don't know, but how we were not a clean sheet, I don't know either. Dagenham replied with a double substitution at half-time. They brought on 2 of those experienced players, Paul McCallum, who of course was a prolific player for Eastleigh a couple of seasons ago, and Miles Weston, who's a seasons campaigner, dangerous player down either flank, which he would show in this match. They went to 2 players up front, and it did make a difference. They went more direct. The second half still contained lots of near misses and goal line incident and goals, but it was of a different nature. It started off similarly, and to be frank, started off very happily for Wrexham. I think Wrexham was still making opportunities, were defending solidly. But as the game went on, Dagenham, who were going more direct to McCallum, were able to start pinning Wrexham back a bit more and build up the pressure, which would end in a disastrous conclusion for Wrexham. Although even then, Wrexham were looking dangerous on the breakaway. Wrexham certainly had the first opportunity of the half, and another great save by Justin. This time, it was a good ball down the right-hand side to find Angus in the box. Again, he did well, taking on his men and pulling the ball back into the 6-yard box. Thomas lunging in at close range with the defender, got there first, made contact. Justin with a magnificent save from point-blank range. The ball ricocheted back out, and Hall Johnson attacked an aerial ball very bravely and was clattered into by Rance. I wondered if it was a penalty shout. Having looked at it again, I wouldn't give a penalty, I don't think, but it was worth asking the question, as Hall Johnson, arriving later, was hit pretty hard, but I don't think there was any real intent to it. Down at the other end, Deering breaking forwards after McCallum had won a flick and drilling a shot from 20 yards just wide of the left post. But then in the 58th minute came the goal, which looked like it was going to put Wrexham into the comfort zone. On this occasion, it was lovely play by Jarvis, breaking down the left-hand side, taking on his man, faking to go one way, changing direction, and drilling in a lovely cross. Angus attacked it at the edge of the 6-yard box and missed it, but it carried through to Hall Johnson. Again, that advantage of the wing-backs, the player on the opposite side, the wing-back on the opposite side, getting into the goal mouth. And Hall Johnson did ever so well to take a touch, knock it square, keep his cool, and with his left foot, slide it inside the left post. Again, Hall Johnson scoring with his weaker foot at the racecourse. That's 2 with his left, 2 with his right, and he's actually our equal top scorer now. Dagenham didn't give up, and were maybe driven partly by rage at an instance which came just after that goal. Just before the goal, Jay Harris had been booked. Now, I've got to say, to the naked eye, and having watched the video back, I think it's a poor decision. It looks like a very good tackle by Harris. He seems to win the ball cleanly. Certainly, you can see the ball completely changes direction in the direction of his challenge, but the referee gave the free kick and then booked Harris. We were wondering in commentary whether he was booked for dissent or for the foul. Looking at the video, for the foul, I think. I don't think he gave Harris much chance to show dissent. So, having done that, after the goal, Harris was doing some good defensive work on the edge of his area, but then overran the ball and, spotting danger, lunged in and went right through his man very late. It was a yellow card. I mean, there's no way about it. The referee, with Dagenham players pointing it out to him very, very volubly, decided to let him off with a warning. I would have to say he got the right outcome in completely the wrong manner. The first one was never a yellow. The second one has to be a yellow. Dagenham had every right to complain at having given the first one. Harris should have been off. But the referee, well, I think made amends for his error. I wonder if that actually was the key point in the match, though. Because he, for me, gave a few funny decisions and benefit of the doubt decisions in Dagenham's favour from now on. I'm not saying that was decisive at all. Dagenham came back into it because they deserved to, and because Wrexham failed to defend maybe quite as high up as they ought to have done. But still, the ref did suddenly, after a strong opening spell, have a bit of a shaky period, and Wrexham were furious by the final whistle. Anyway, from that free kick, Wrexham cleared and actually did pretty well to put pressure on Dagenham. Angus, it was essentially. A long clearance, back passes played, a bit under hit, and Angus, with great pace, didn't quite get there ahead of Justin. I say great pace, I think if it had happened at the start of the match, he probably would have got there ahead of Justin, but the Wrexham team had been working so hard that they were tired, and Angus would eventually be withdrawn for that reason. Firstly, though, there was another substitution, 19 minutes left, and this is an interesting call a lot of people are making comments about. Dan Jarvis was brought off, and that was wise. Jarvis had a very good game, but he was shattered. He's just a minute before made a good run into the Dagenham half, and you could just see he couldn't get back into his own half. He was exhausted. He'd been running so hard. So the change was made. And interestingly, Ponticelli was the player who came on for Jarvis. Now, interestingly, because he's a striker, Wrexham have, of course, got major problems on the bench because of injuries. Ryan Austin, from our youth academy, lifelong Wrexham fan, good man, he was on the bench alongside 3 attacking midfielders and a striker. So when Jarvis came off, Keats decided to bring on a striker, so we had 3 forwards on the pitch. It was slightly surprising. I don't want to necessarily second guess his motives, but a couple of thoughts come to mind. One is that Ponticelli this season, of course, has had a fairly miserable time of it. He's here to score goals, he's got none. But actually, his all-round play has been a lot better than I thought it has been. So maybe that was the point, that, we could use him as a player behind the strikers, as Jarvis was, and he's got a better all-round game now to do that. Well, that's a legitimate idea. The other point, of course, is that Keats often gets criticised for negative approach, and I think that's... I'm not saying it's never true. It'll be stupid of me to say that, quite frankly. I would say I think there's a difference between building a team from the back and making sure that you're solid and being overly defensive. And I think he's often been quite attacking. I think this may well be an example. We're under pressure, but with 2 goals to the good. And so Keats' attitude is let's get up the pitch. Let's not be stuck so deep in our own half. Let's have a more directly attacking option than Jarvis on the pitch and really try and hit them and get that 3rd goal, which makes the game completely dead. So I think there's logic in it all, and it's quite forward-thinking logic, the sort of thing that Keats' critics claim that he doesn't have. But I don't think it worked, if I'm honest. Ponticelli maybe was culpable for the first Dagenham goal, because what happened was, well, it was a strange one. The ball went down to the bottom, to the left-hand corner flag, as Dagenham's look at it. Weston chased it. He'd started off on the right and it looked decent, but when he went on the left, he suddenly started getting all sorts of service in. Weston was harried to the corner flag by Harris, and it looked like Harris had the situation under control. But Weston then played a manoeuvre which was either incredible luck or utter genius. I'm inclined to think the latter. It was a wonderful piece of play, a sort of donkey flick, flicking it over Harris's head. He chased it down the goal line, kept it in. I thought he didn't, to be honest, in commentary, but looking at that video, he kept her in. And he pulled it back nicely. Now, looking at the penalty area as Weston's running into that along the line, we've picked up our men fine. So, with the benefit of hindsight, I was thinking, why does he manage to play a simple, side of the foot pass to a bloke who has a simple side of the foot finish? Well, I've got to be honest, because Ponticelli was picking up his man, Robinson, and he was ball watching. And the ball was slid inside and Ponticelli had lost him, and it was a simple finish to step onto it and to slot it across Dibble. And it was 2-1 with 13 minutes left, and all of a sudden the game was different. Wrexham almost immediately made another change. Angus coming off. Again, Dior Angus is still building up his fitness. He put in a very good shift. Paul Rutherford came on. I think it's legitimate to ask whether maybe Rutherford should have been a player on for Jarvis, because, of course, we know in Dean Keats' first spell at Wrexham, he's used Paul Rutherford very effectively behind Sean Howard and Jerry McDonough in a sort of defend from the front approach, where they would press the defence and not let them come out. And most famously, when we beat Forest Green 3-1, a brilliant win against a team at the top of the league who love to pass the ball out from the back. So we used those 3 attacking players basically as a defensive unit to press them and disrupt their passing. They couldn't get the rhythm going or beat them 3-1. But we didn't. Rutherford came on, Ponticelli went up front, and Wrexham again were having to defend quite deep, but were defending the penalty area pretty well. And on the breakaway, looking threatening. 5 minutes from the end, Harris with a clever dink down the right-hand side. Hull Johnson, excellent thinking to make an attacking run, burst down the right-hand side. He pulled it back. There were 2 men in the box. Ponticelli attacking the near post, Thomas attacking the far. The pullback maybe just a bit behind Ponticelli, so he decides he's going to try a little back flick to put it in and doesn't really make proper contact with it. Maybe he'd have been better off taking a touch back to goal and seeing what he could do. But it was a decent half chance, and then a couple of minutes later, another opportunity, a clever quick free kick again by Harris. It was a lovely flick over the top, this time by Ponticelli, dinking it over to the right-hand side. Rutherford took it into the box, pushed it into the goal mouth. Thomas attacked it, couldn't quite reach it. Justin fumbled it, but there was no one following up on the far post, and Dagenham were able to clear. That was in the 88th minute. The referee signalled 5 minutes of added time. I've got to say, I thought that was excessive, but like I said, the referee was making a few little minor calls in Dagenham's favour. I didn't think Wrexham's time wasting was excessive, in all honesty, but the referee, I think, bought the fact that Dagenham very loudly were complaining all the time. I'm not knocking them for that. I would if I was one of them. And I'd want to see Wrexham doing that in their situation. But 5 minutes felt like a lot. He also booked Dior Angus for being slow coming off the pitch. I think that was a bit harsh. Generally when players are slow off the pitch, the ref comes across and just hurries them along. He just ran up behind him and booked him. I don't know if that was a bit harsh, but certainly seemed to have in his head that, I don't know, am I right? That Jay Harris decision he knew was wrong, really, and therefore he felt he'd maybe give a little bit Dagenham's way as compensation. Anyway, they carved out a chance in the 3rd minute. It was a good piece of work by Weston again on the left-hand side, sweeping the ball in. Reynolds getting up at close range. Kelleher did well, though, to jump with him. Reynolds got his head on target, but it hit Kelleher's head and deflected over the bar. But that was a warning. Maybe we should have heeded. Weston, by this point, was causing real problems down the left-hand side. Hall Johnson wasn't able to stop the crosses from coming in. And in the 5th minute of added time, we paid the price. Weston again running at Hall Johnson, who was isolated. Maybe Wrexham too interested in defending the box and not putting someone out to support Hall Johnson. Weston beat him, hit the goal line, swung a brilliant cross in, and Rance got up 6 yards out and planted a header back across Dibble. Dibble had no chance, and it was 2-2. And yet there was still drama to come. Wrexham from the kick-off went straight at Dagenham, desperate to try and grab the 3 points they'd frittered away. And in the 97th minute, the ball's knocked into the box, ricochets around. Hall Johnson picks the ball up on the right corner of the 6-yard box, and the referee blows his whistle for full time. He did check his watch twice during the build-up. Now, Wrexham were livid, massive dissent around him, particularly from Rutherford and Hall Johnson. Dean Keats came on the pitch to pull his players away, but had a word as well. And Kwame Thomas, quite frankly, did a magnificent diplomatic job, hauling players away from the referee to make sure they didn't get themselves into trouble. What do I think of it? Ref's perfectly entitled to blow the final whistle whenever he sees fit. He is the sole arbiter of time. That is the rule. So firstly, the ref's absolutely entitled to do that. Although, I will also say, in terms of convention, refs don't do that. Referees tend to allow an attack to play out, if only to avoid this sort of controversy. So he's perfectly entitled to do what he did, but it's remarkably rare. If you think, of course, the famous example is the 1978 World Cup. Sorry to talk in cliches. Clive Thomas, Brazil against Sweden, corners in the air. Referee blows his whistle then, and Brazil score, but it doesn't count. And then, of course, Wrexham benefited from that, didn't we? 1998, 3rd round, Wrexham away to Wimbledon. Cross comes in. Was it Robbie Earle who scored? But the referee blew his whistle pretty much when Michael Hughes hit the ball. Strange that he let everyone get in the box and get into position. Why didn't he just stop the game when it went out? But yeah, we weren't complaining then. The referee is the one who decides. So it was odd by the ref. It was bringing criticism on him in the pattern I'm trying to lay out about the Jay Harris decision. Maybe I see it. You know, that's part of it. Hall Johnson, for what it's worth, did have the ball in the 6-yard box. He didn't have the best touch on it. And I've really been watching this again and again to think, okay, when is the whistle blown? He would have had to scrap back to goal to retain possession. So I don't know, you know, that it was a clear shooting chance, a clear opportunity. But I would say, like I say, convention is referees don't do that. They let the goal mouth action pass, then blow. So Wrexham frustrated. Oh, Dean Keats got booked as well during the game. First Wrexham manager ever to get booked. And, well, it was very frustrating. Wrexham, well, okay, let's address the point I drew up at the start. Sorry, this is a bit of an epic, but it was a bit of an epic game. Davis versus Record as a centre-back. Could we have maybe switched it around when we started inviting pressure on ourselves? Maybe. Although it's got to be said, in the first half, Record was utterly outstanding. He was causing all sorts of problems getting down the left-hand side. He scored the goal as well. And you would have to argue, why would you change that around? Davis looked a bit vulnerable at the back. It's not his position, and that is not intended as a criticism of him in any way. I think he's a smashing player. But it was a little bit of a stretch for him to play centre-back, I think. At this stage in his career. He looked a little vulnerable, but we didn't concede any goals. Oddly, the area of the game where you'd think he'd be better, playing when there's space in behind him and space in front of him, actually was when he made a couple of errors. To be fair, he had a couple of horrible balls played in behind him. And in the second half, when Wrexham were defending deep and he was having to do the old-fashioned centre-back things, actually, I thought he did really well. He won a few good headers, especially late on in the match in the penalty box. It's not his natural game, but he did well. So, yeah, I My heart says Record feels more obvious as a centre-back, but Davis filled in okay. The goals didn't come from him. The goals came from the fact that, to be honest, Weston started causing mayhem down the left-hand side when he switched over. And, of course, I've been talking throughout here about the benefits of the wing-back system. The downside of the wing-back system is you leave your wide defenders isolated unless you let a wide midfielder, or central midfielder, come across to help. Maybe I don't know, get 4 midfielders across in front of the back 5. It feels a bit negative, that, but maybe we could have done that. Anyway, whatever. It was a draw. Performances: Dibble made a good first half save and had no chance with the goals. Across the back, like I say, Davis, I've sort of explained already. I did some good things. Something didn't quite work. I think par for the course for a talented player playing in a position that's not really his. Kelleher was excellent. And not only did he win a lot of headers, make a lot of blocks, in the second half it was crucial that he dealt with McCallum. When balls were played forwards to McCallum for him to flick on, McCallum had the better of Kelleher. When the ball was played into the box for McCallum to try to get on target, Kelleher was the victor. He made some really good defensive headers. Admirable performance by Kelleher, and continuing excellent recent form. Carrington as well did well. I mean, switching across to the right side of centre-back doesn't bother him really, does it? And again, he was solid, made some important headers, did very well. Didn't come out to help Hall Johnson when he was getting troubled by Weston, but I'm not pointing the finger at him for that, because I think the idea was the 3 centre-backs will defend the box, so it wasn't really his role, I would argue. Record on the left, first half sensational going forwards. Second half, pretty absent going forwards. It was a different type of game. Still lots of chances, but we were defending a lot more and hitting them on the break. Record wasn't getting forwards. Having said that, I don't think it's coincidental that Weston, who turned the game, spent the first, 25 minutes of the second half on the right-hand side and didn't cause any problems to Record. But when he switched to the other side, then couldn't stop getting crosses into dangerous areas. Record defended him well. So Record deserves a lot of credit too. Centre mid, right, Young did a lot of that unseen dirty work. Didn't have much impact with the ball, but he worked like a Trojan and he closed down a lot of attacks. He made some good tackles, interceptions, but he also made an awful lot of good shuttle runs across midfield just to close things down and slow down Dagenham breakaways. So sometimes without touching the ball, he was doing an invaluable job. It was impressive, I thought. Harris was more eye-catching. Casting aside the fact that he should have been sent off, he was typically tenacious. He played some excellent forward passes to spring attacks. He, did everything he could to score with that early header as well. He played very well, Harris. He was impressive. He also slowed down some breakaways. There was one key one where Dagenham had players over and he just managed to hassle McQueen. Didn't get the ball off him, didn't really try to, but just his presence hassling him completely slowed the breakaway down and let us get back. And that sort of work by the 2 centre mids was excellent. Jarvis was centre mid but a bit ahead of that and had a good game, maybe his best game of the season. Nice skill to help set up the Hall Johnson for the assist for the first goal. He had the assist for the second goal. Some real intelligent play. He worked like a Trojan, like I said, eventually, but looked on his knees when he was brought off, and well done to him. Angus did well. You can see he's still working towards fitness, and he ran himself into the ground. There were some points where things he tried just didn't quite come off, but he still caused problems. Interesting to see him drift over to the right more than we saw at Eastleigh. He was a good partner to Thomas. Pity didn't get that one-on-one chance. But yeah, he looks like the sort of signing that we need. He looks lively. And then the man of the match, Kwame Thomas, no question. Thomas was superb up front. Constantly winning his battles in the air, running tirelessly, teeing up chances. He just wouldn't stop hassling the defenders. Massive credit to him, and he even dragged a couple of players away before they got post-match red cards too. It was a battling quality performance by a good target man. Good to see him back in that sort of rhythm. The subs that came on didn't have that much time to influence play, in all honesty. And, well, that's life. Well, I said I had to take a while to get my head around it. I did, didn't I? Sorry about that, taking up half your day, but that was a game with a lot to get your teeth into. With a final score of Wrexham 2, Dagenham Redbridge 2, I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.